In this video, you are going to learn the magic behind realistic 3D spheres. This is usually not possible in After Effects, but in this video, we are going to do just that, and take it a step further. We will use different materials, including matte black, and even opaque and transparent glass. You will also learn how to add real 3D objects inside our spheres. If we have a look at our promotional video, we can see that we have three types of orbs. So we have this first orb that is emitting light. Then we have a second orb in here that has this realistic 3D look and is also emitting some sort of light, and in it we can find also these 3D cubes that are rotating inside of it. And finally we have this orb in here that has these cosmic lights inside of it, and then as it rotates we can see this realistic glass effect that is happening right over here, and also this surreal shadow right over here. So we are going to see how we can create all of those three orbs. And as a bonus, I'm also going to show you how to create this scene in here, which is effectively the most complex scene that we have in the promotional video. So let's get started. We're going to start from the first orb, and it's going to be quite simple to do this. Let's go to the ellipse tool and then simply drag and drop right over here to create an ellipse, and then we can align it horizontally and vertically just like this so that it's completely in the center. Let's rename this to orb. And then we can go to the fill layer from here, and we can cycle on this by holding Alt on our keyboard and clicking until we get a radial gradient. Now let's enter in the radial in here, and now we can give it some colors. So the first color, I would like it to be this nice dark blue, somewhere like that. And then the second color, I would like it to be this light, nice purple, just like that. Press OK, and if we are on the selection tool in here, when we press OK, we will find these two dots. And like this, we can specify where we would like that radial blur to happen, basically. This is perfect. And then we can tweak it more using this little color midpoint in here so that we can specify where the light would fall, just like that. So let's press OK. And now we can go to the orb in here, right click, and go to layer styles. And from here, simply click on inner glow. So go to the bottom, find that inner glow, and then we can increase the size in here to around, let's say, 20, and we can modify the color to be white in this case. And now we're going to give this some like light emission. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to new adjustment layer. I'm going to place that adjustment layer right over here, and we're going to rename that to blur. And then from the effects and presets, we're going to find TC radial fast blur, and drag and drop that right over here. And by default, the default settings are quite good, so I'm going to leave that as it is, maybe just reduce it just a little bit, something around that. Finally, we're going to go to the orb once again, and we're going to duplicate that just one time, position it right on top, and then we're going to go to around the 3-second mark, and we're going to cut that layer. So Shift, Command, and D to cut it, and cut the last part like that. So now if we open the scale of this, let's press S on our keyboard to open the scale, we can simply animate this. So we can click on the stopwatch right over here, go to the end of this layer and resize it to around the size of this whole composition in here. So we can see that animation like that now. We can even make it a little bit faster, so around 2 seconds would be quite good. So let's cut it like that. And then we can pick both of those keyframes and hit F9 on our keyboard, just like that. So now we're going to just very simply animate the opacity, so the transparency of the layer. So we're going to create a stopwatch at the end right over here, and this is going to be set at 0%. Then we're going to create another stopwatch at the start. Simply click on that button, it should be 0% as well. And then if we go to around this position in here, we can set that to around a 30% would work in this case. And then finally, we're going to go to the transfer mode, and we're going to set that to screen. Perfect. So now if we have a look at that, we can see that nice light emission happening right over there. But it is only happening one time. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to duplicate this a few times. So Command D on my keyboard, a few times, around 8 times. Then we're going to select all of those layers, right click, and go to Keyframe Assistant, and then Sequence Layers. From here, click on Overlap and set a duration of around 10 right over here. click OK, and that will auto sequence them for us very easily, just like that. Finally, I would like to add some more animation to this, and to do that, we're going to go to the orb, hit R on my keyboard, go to the stopwatch right over here, hold Alt on my keyboard, All Option, and click on the stopwatch, and simply I'm going to type in time times 500. And basically this will multiply the time value by 500 times each time, and since time changes over time, this will be animated automatically. So that is the first orb. As you can see, it's just a few steps to achieve this. So now let's jump to the next orb. Now, before we continue, I wanted to just humbly ask you if you could leave a like or a comment below. This would really help me to reach more people. I have some very exciting tutorials planned out, so also don't forget to subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. For the second orb, we're going to start by creating a new composition, and we're going to name this to Orb 2. We're going to give it a width of 2000 and a height of 1000. And now we're going to go over the rectangle tool, and we're going to draw a quick rectangle. So somewhere around that. Don't worry about the precise size, we're going to control it from here. So let's go to rectangle path, and I would like that to be 1000 by 1000. Now I'm simply going to align that to the center vertically, and then align it left right over there. And this one we are going to rename it to white. And of course, since it's white, we're going to go over this layer here, hold Alt on our keyboard and shuffle through these until we find the full color and change it to white. Duplicate it, Command D on my keyboard, and this one we're going to rename it to black. And then simply align it to the other side. And from here, from the fill, we can change it to black. Let's create another rectangle, duplicate that once again, rename it to blue square, and we're going to go to the fill in here, toggle it until we find the linear. I'm going to give it this color in here, and then I'm going to move this in the middle. I'm going to give it another color in here, and I would like it to be a little bit lighter, and then in the end in here, I would like more of a lighter blue, somewhere around that. I'm going to arrange these so that I have kind of a transition. And in here I'm going to make it a little bit darker, just like that. Perfect. Something like this would work. Press OK. And then, like we did before, click on the pointer tool until you find these two dots. And I'm going to position these like this. So this is perfect. Now I'm going to create another one. So duplicate this, and this would be the dark part. And we're going to position it to the other side, and let's for now remove the visibility of the black and white squares from here. And for the dark part, I'm simply going to go to the fill in here, and I'm going to go to this and make it pure black. This one I'm going to delete it, and then this one I'm going to make it just a little bit gray like this, and this one we can make it slightly brighter, maybe something like that, and press OK. And then finally we're going to duplicate this one more time, and we're going to rename this to fractal. And right now what we are doing, we are actually creating the textures for the actual sphere. So from here we're going to find the fractal noise effect, just drag and drop it right over here, and we are going to give it these values. So for contrast, we're going to give it something high, like 2500, and then for brightness we're going to give it something very low, so like something like -1000, and then we're going to go to the transform from here and reduce its scale a lot. Around that, I like how this looks. Now the only thing that we need to do is go to the transfer mode and go to screen. So this is the texture that I would be using with the sphere. Now the next part would be to add some effects to turn this into a sphere. Now let's go to layer and new adjustment layer, and we are going to rename this to sphere effect. And now we're going to add some effects. Now, if you are in a hurry, I have also created a quick preset for you that you can simply apply with a single click, and it will create a sphere for you from any texture. More on that later. So let's go to this sphere effect now. Let's go in here, go to motion, tile in here, and drag and drop motion tile. And if we go in here, we can see what this does. So if we drag this number in here, we can see that we can scrub, kind of rotate these layers. Let's reset it for now. And we are going to drag and drop the CC sphere effect. And immediately you will see a sphere, but right now it doesn't look that great. So we're going to tweak it to make it ours and make it look realistic. So let's see how we can do that. First, we're going to go to the light, and I'm simply going to tweak the light a little bit so that the light comes from this kind of corner from here. And then we're going to open the shading from here and go to ambient, give it something like a 50. Specular, I'm going to give it 100. And then roughness like 0.5 so that it opens a little bit that light. And metal 0. So let's go now to the light intensity, and I'm going to reduce that to just 7. And we can close the sphere altogether now. So now we can go to the next one, which is CC light sweep. And let's just drag and drop that CC light sweep right over here. And this will create this kind of light sweep in here. So now let's go to the CC light sweep in here, go to shape and change it to smooth. Wonderful. Go to width and give it something like 100. And sweep intensity, I'm going to lower it to 4, just so the sweep is not visible in here and we only get that light edging right over here. Then the edge intensity, I'm going to give it a value of 30. And edge thickness, I'm going to increase that to the maximum amount, so something around 20. Finally, we're going to go over this center in here and make sure that it is completely in the center in here. So now, if we go to the direction, we can see that we have this like rim light in here, this light that is falling wherever we would like it to fall. So in this case, I'm going to align it from this side. Let's just Command D on our keyboard to duplicate that, and then we're going to position that on the opposite side, and this one we're going to position it somewhere around here. So this looks quite good already, but let's make it even better. So we're going to now bring in a glow effect, and just drag and drop that right over here. Now normally the glow would actually glow the parts that are shining, so in this case it's glowing this light, but I'm going to go to this first value glow based on, and I'm going to change it to alpha channel. And this way it will glow over the whole sphere in here, since it is using the transparency of the sphere instead. Let's now increase the glow radius, whatever we like basically, so something around here, let's say 16. And glow intensity, let's just give it a 0.6. And now we can duplicate this as well, so Command D on your keyboard. And we can now increase the glow radius from here. And as you can see, like this, we have created a rim light. And with the glow radius, we can control how sharp that rim light is. So something like this would work quite well. And then finally, I'm going to go to the CC light sweep that we have created earlier. That would be this one. I'm going to Command D on my keyboard to duplicate it once more and drag it to the bottom of this effect sketch in here. Go to the light color and change that to black. Change the light reception to composite. And as you can see now, we have also created a shadow. And if we would like, we can go to edge intensity and increase that for the sphere. So let's put that shadow right over here. And the final step is we're going to go to effects and presets and drag in simple choker. Just like that, and give it a value of around 10. And like that, we can cut the outer parts very simply like that. So great, our sphere is almost done. And now if we go to the first effect, the motion tile from here, we can go to the tile center in here. And if we slide through this in here, we can see that we can rotate it horizontally, just like that. Very simple. And then if we open the CC sphere effect from here and go to rotation, we can go to Z rotation from here, and we can even rotate the other direction. So let's animate this very quickly. I'm just going to animate the horizontal axis in here. So let's click on the tile center from here, hit U on our keyboard to open that keyframe, and then we can go forward a few frames somewhere around there, and let's give it a 15,000 value for instance, and we can see that animation happening. Wonderful, so our sphere is animated, and now we can see how we can create this opaque glass look and the 3D squares rotating inside of it. But before that, I would like to show you this quick preset that I have made. So in here, I have a quick texture. It could be any texture, of course, and we're going to create a new adjustment layer from here. And then we can simply go to this sphere preset that I have in here and simply double click on that. And this will create our sphere automatically for us with all of these features. So if we go now to sphere controller, we can rotate this in the x-axis very easily. We can rotate it in the z-axis very easily. And we also have controls for the lights in here. So the great thing about this is that this is packaged all in a nice package in here. So it's quite easy to use. So we can, for instance, increase the main light just like that. We can go to the light 1, for instance, and increase its intensity or decrease it altogether. And we can even tweak the direction, etc. of that light. So it has a lot of features to create spheres. And then you also have the rim light intensity, which you can increase, and you can even decrease or increase the sharpness of that rim light. So this is quite useful if you would like to use that. Also, you have the shadow functions in here, which you can just rotate, etc. all in one place under Sphere Controller. To illustrate this better, I also have another texture in here, just a simple tennis ball texture. And once again, if I simply create an adjustment layer and just double click on the sphere preset, we can go to the sphere controller and tweak things, for instance, like the main light intensity, etc. So that's how this preset works. Of course, feel free to create your own sphere using this tutorial, but if you'd like to create it a little bit quicker, you can use this preset. I'm going to leave the link in the description for this. Now back to our orb, and let's see how we can create those 3D cubes inside of this opaque glass in here. So let's go to this composition here. I have a simple composition 1000 by 1000 setup in here, and I'm going to create a 3D cube. It's going to be fairly simple. So just for the sake of 3D, we're going to do this in 3D. So we're going to drag and drop a quick square, align it in the middle, just like this, and we're going to toggle through these colors in here until we find the solid color, just by holding Alt right over there. And you can give it any color, just like that. Toggle the 3D from right over here. And then from Classic 3D, we're going to change to Advanced 3D. Let's go on R on our keyboard. And we can rotate that just like that. And let's open this layer, go to Geometry Options, and we're going to change the bevel style to convex. So the size is 400. So if we scroll down to the geometry options, we want an extrusion depth of 400 as well. And now if I go to the transform in here and go to the anchor point, I can tweak the Z position in here to just 200. So that would be the middle of the cube, so that I can rotate it from the center. And now we can introduce some lights. So we're going to go to Layer, New, and Light. I'm going to use a simple point light, position that point light right over here. And with lights, I usually like to create this nice effect where shapes fade into black. So if I go to T, it will show the intensity. I can increase that however I like, so somewhere around 200 would work. Go on UU in here, open up light options from here. I'm going to decrease the radius to around 200. Of course, depending on the light position, this would be different for you. Making sure that the back is completely black. And then I'm simply going to duplicate this one more time, just like this, and position this on the other side. And like this, we have this nice cube that is actually have the back of it black. So now let's go to this cube. Let's rename it to cube. Go hit R on our keyboard, and we're going to rotate this. So let's simply toggle all of these switches and just go to somewhere around here and just give it some random rotation in here, just like that. So somewhere around here. So like that, we have our cube ready. Now we can simply pick that cube. So let's pick the 3D cubes in here, drag and drop them into a new composition, just like that. And we're going to rename this to Inner 3D Cubes 1. Let's double click on that. And we are in this composition now. And now we can duplicate this how many times we like, just like that. And we can position these wherever we like as well. So we can scale them down and position it, for instance, right over here. And this one, we can scale it down and position it somewhere around here. And we can go over this, toggle the switches and change the transfer mode to screen. Perfect. Now we can just simply change their timing in here so that they have a different time. And if we go in here and type in hue, that will give us a hue and saturation effect, and we can change the color just by using this wheel. So let's go to the other cube, double click on hue, and we can change its color once again like that. Great. And the great thing about this is that we can even go in here, bring in a fast box blur effect, go over that cube, and we can like give it a little bit of blurriness, just like that. And we can copy this effect and paste it on the other cube as well, and on this cube as well. Now, if I go back to the composition named Orb 2 that we have created earlier, where we have this nice animation, we can simply pick all of these layers in here and right click and click on Pre-Compose. And we're going to rename this composition to Orb 2 Texture. Just like that, press OK. And that will create another composition for us named Orb 2 Texture, and the original composition Orb 2, in it we will find that composition named Orb 2 Texture. So all the things related to that orb are packaged up inside this simple composition here. So now let's drag and drop our inner 3D cubes right over here, and we can scale those down. Press S on your keyboard and scale those down to somewhere around here to fit in the 3D sphere in here. You can see how this will work right over here, but of course we need to adjust this to work well. So to do this, we can go to the Orb 2 texture once again, and we're going to duplicate that. Command D on your keyboard, and we're simply going to change it to Orb 2 texture, black and white. Now let's enter inside of that, and if you remember, when you have created this texture, we have also created a black and white squares. So if we hide the blue and the dark part squares in this one, and also the fractal, and just show the black and white, we will find that we have a black and white sphere here. And now if I go on the sphere effect layer in here, I can simply hide all the effects that I have in here, apart from the original motion tile and the CC sphere. And for the CC sphere, I'm simply going to go to shading, and I'm going to increase the ambient to 100, so that I have this like solid white and solid black, and you can see that being animated right over there. Perfect. So now if I go back to the Orb 2, I can simply drag and drop that Orb 2 texture black and white right over here. And if I go to the inner 3D cubes from here, go to the track matte from here, and pick whip that orb in here, or texture black and white, just like that. From here now, we can go to the alpha matte and toggle that to find Luma matte. And from here, we can invert the matte. So if I invert it, now you can see that these squares, these cubes are actually invisible here. So that would be like the white part, they are invisible on the white part in here, but visible right over here inside of this glass kind of globe. And the last thing now that we need to do is simply go to transfer mode of these 3D cubes and change this to screen. That way they will integrate perfectly with that sphere. And we can also increase some blur in here. So if we go to fast blur, that would also sell the effect much better. Perfect. So that is sphere number 2. Now we are going to see how we can create this beautiful 3D sphere with this glass effect. So to do this, we're going to start from the actual orb that we have just created, and I'm simply going to drag and drop that inside of a new composition, and that composition I'm going to rename it to Orb Animation. So I have my Orb Animation composition right over here, and now I'm going to go to that composition, go to Composition Settings, and I'm going to resize this to a Full HD resolution, so 1920 by 1080. Perfect. Now I can resize this to around, let's say 70%, and I can animate this. And to animate this, I'm simply going to go over here, hit P on my keyboard to find the position, and then go to the first frame in here and drag and drop it out of the screen. And then I'm going to select this last keyframe in here, go to the graph editor and toggle the easy ease in here, and I'm going to just drag that handle in there so that it starts fast and ends slowly. Now I'm going to pick the orb animation and I'm going to drag and drop it inside of the scene that I have already made. I just have a simple background in here with a grid. If you would like to specifically know how to create this kind of twinkling grid, I'm going to leave a link in the description of a video that I have already made about this as well. So now we have this 3D sphere here over this background, and we want to hide this kind of texture in here and change it to a glass look. So let's see how we can do that. Now we are going to do a similar step that we have done before, where we would hide this black layer in here. So to do that, I'm simply going to go to the orb animation here, the composition that we have just created earlier. In here, we can simply duplicate this, so Command D to duplicate it. And this new composition, I'm going to rename it to Orb Animation Black and White. Now I would like this to be in black and white. And since I have already made this orb to texture black and white in here, I can simply use that. But I would want to switch it with this orb in here. This already have animation over it, and I don't want to lose that animation. So to switch this, it's very simple. Simply click on the black and white orb in here, hold Alt on your keyboard, and just drag and drop. And that would switch it. And if I hit U on my keyboard, you can see that the animation is still there, and it is exactly as it was. Perfect. So now I have this black and white animation. So let's go back now to the glass scene in here. And now I can drag and drop that orb animation black and white right over here. So now with this orb animation here, I can simply go over the track matte in here and position it right over that, over the black and white. Now, as we have done before, we're going to switch this to the Luma matte. And in this case, I'm going to switch it so that we will only hide the black part of this sphere. Now, I'm going to duplicate this one more time, remove the track matte over this, so no matte, and this one, we're going to change it to screen. So now I have that kind of glass look, but the background is exactly as it is. It's not displacing anything. So to displace the background, what we're going to do is we're going to simply bring in a new effect. So let's go to New and Adjustment Layer, and let's rename it to Displacement. And we're going to find the displacement effect from right over here. So displacement map, drag and drop that right over there. And from the displacement map layer, we're going to select that orb animation. So this is on an adjustment layer, and in here we're going to select the orb animation, the original one that we have made. And now we can shift these how much we want. So something like 50 for instance, and 50 would work well. And now this adjustment layer, I would like to put it right under the orb animation so that it will only affect the background. And to illustrate this better, I'm simply going to drag and drop a text animation that I have in here and place it right under the displacement layer, just right over here. And if we have a look at this, we can see that happening right over here. Now in this case, I'm not going to cover how to do text animation in this tutorial, but if you would like, I can do a whole video just on that. So please let me know in the comment section right below. Great, so now that our sphere is done, let's see how we can create this nice surreal look with the shadow right over here, like in this example. So to start in this case, I'm simply going to go to the orb animation here. I'm going to duplicate that. And like I have done before, I'm going to remove the track matte. And if I solo that, we have this orb. And I'm simply going to go to the an effect named tint from here and drag and drop that right over there. And make sure that both of these colors are set to black. Perfect. So now if I unhide that and position it at the top in here, I can see that I have a simple black sphere. So I'm going to place that right under the grid, right over here, but just before the actual gradient background. Now I can create a new adjustment layer, so new adjustment layer, and we can change that to shadow. Now let's put that right over the orb animation, right over there. And from here, we're going to find radial fast blur. Drag and drop that over the shadow. And let's make sure the center is somewhere around here, or even somewhere around here would work well. So on top in the center, and we can increase the amount. So to something around 97 would work well. Now, if I want, I can duplicate this one more time. And this time, I'm simply going to change this to just 30. And like that, I have a close shadow in here, and I have a far away shadow as well. And this will give this nice effect. Now, to enhance this even further, I'm going to add another adjustment layer. So new adjustment layer, right click new adjustment layer, and let's rename this to glow. Now on this adjustment layer, I'm going to add two effects. So we're going to add a curves effect. So let's drag and drop a curves. And then I'm also going to add a glow effect. So just drag and drop that glow. And first I'm going to increase the glow. So let's hide this curves for now. And I'm going to increase the glow radius to around 180 maybe. Glow threshold, I'm going to put it around 70%. Now I'm going to play with the curves to add some contrast. So I'm going to increase the brightness and then add some contrast by decreasing the darker parts. And now I can position this glow right under the text in here, right over the background, so that I separate the orb from the background. And I would like to add some more brightness to the whole scene. So to do that, let's add another adjustment layer. So layer new adjustment layer. Let's position that right on top over here and add another curves effect. And with this, we can simply increase the brightness just like this and maybe add a little bit more contrast like that. That's our scene done here. And now to create that cosmic orb feel inside of this orb, we can go back to the orb tool right over here. And we can just simply pick the inner 3D cubes and increase the blur radius. And we can, of course, enter inside of the inner 3D cubes in here, and we can add more cubes. So in this case, we can duplicate this, for instance, hit S for scale in here, and position this in the middle. And like this, we have one cube going against the other. Perfect, so that is basically it. So this is the final look in here. With all of that said, I would like to very quickly go over the last scene, which I'm sure you're going to have questions about. So I am right here inside the last scene, and if I pick the effector in here, this is a simple null layer, which the orb is parented to it. And right now, as you can see, there is no animation, and the animation is actually happening when this orb is moved. So if I move this orb in here, all the other layers will react to it accordingly. So in this case, I have given this orb in here, this null layer that the orb is parented to, a quick animation, and I have added animation using the Mega Motion presets in here, a simple bounce animation. So let's search for it very quickly in, and as you can see, once I add that animation, all of the other layers react to that orb. And if you'd like to know how you can do this kind of animation where the effector attracts and repels different objects, you can go ahead and watch this video where I have made a whole video that explains just this. So you can watch it right over here.